Hey everyone, welcome back to I Date Money Presents Money Talks. I'm your hostess, Lisa Drennon, and today we are talking about paying off debt. I know a lot of you think of debt as leveraging debt as good debt. I know I've been there. I was addicted to 0% credit cards and I kept getting in this cycle. And I'm actually still in the habit of using 0% credit cards. And I was dating money last week, a couple weeks ago actually, and I was looking at the total debt and I thought, this is out of control. Now, mind you, the 0% doesn't expire. It doesn't expire until like January of 26. But every week I'm looking at this debt and I'm allocating 20% of my income towards this debt for what? And I was looking at what I use this money for, and it was all good things: travel, investing in coaching programs, investing in health coaches and functional nurses and medicine supplements to help my gut health issue that, if you've been following me for a little bit, you may know my story, but I have diverticulosis and gastritis. And in 2021, I went from 110 pounds to 143 pounds in a matter of months. And I have not been able to get this weight off. And some people have told me it's psychological. And I've connected with a psychiatrist, a psychologist, with different counselors, hypnotherapists. I've tried everything. And so when I look at this amount of debt right now, I'm carrying it's $60,000 all on 0%. And I think I have the money to pay this. And I thought, psychologically, maybe this is what's keeping me in debt. Maybe this is what's keeping me in this rut of not being inspired to share my 12-week program, my wealth accelerator. I'm transitioning from one-to-one coaching to group coaching. And I, have this dream since November of 2024 to fill this 12-week container for $29.97 and put 12 beautiful mompreneurs in there and then cycle this every 12 weeks. And, I have this vision for the online courses and, a membership where for $20 you can go in there and you could, read ebooks, watch videos on financial literacy and multiplying your money and simple investments and retirement and estate planning. But yet here I am procrastinating. So I had a conversation with God and God's like, journal. And I'm like, journal? I don't want to journal. I'm tired of journaling. I'm tired of tracking. I'm tired of doing this. I'm just tired. And God's like, journal. You used to journal all the time. And now you haven't done it in months. I thought, fine, I will. And yes, I had an attitude. But a couple of days ago, I started journaling and my heart started to change. My thought pattern started to change. And I started to see hope again. And I thought, okay, there's something about writing down your thoughts, getting them out of your head. I mean, there's a reason why the Bible says to captivate your thoughts, make them obedient to Christ. And our thoughts are not the same as his thoughts. And when we think about our mission, our plan, and when we're, connecting with God and walking with God, and we realize we are made in his image, wow, we are created for such a time as this. We are designed, we are fully equipped. And I think of all the things that I'm equipped to do and how I'm meant to help people with their finances. I'm like, where have I been? And it's just, I haven't been taking care of me. And I just keep going after these shiny objects. So imagine waking up one day realizing you're drowning in debt and feeling completely overwhelmed by your financial situation. That was me, stuck, stressed, and spinning my wheels. But in just 6 months, I completely turned it around and paid off $100,000. And that was the second time I was in debt. First time was back at age 22 when I had $32,000 worth of debt and I filed for bankruptcy. And then I carried that burden with me because it's embarrassing. And here I am years later, 57 years old. And, when I started my insurance business, when I contract with carriers, I have to reveal that. What's that word I'm looking for? But they ask a question, have you filed for bankruptcy? And some of the applications will say in the last 7 years, but some will say in a lifetime. And I'm like, yeah. And it's embarrassing, right? Because it shows irresponsibility. It shows that you're not capable or able. And that's not true. That's a lie that we believe. But this is one of the lies that I believed. And, so when I share today, I'm going to share the exact method I used to make this happen. And it's still scary. A few weeks ago, as I was looking at my debt and I'm thinking, this is dragging me down. This is a burden that I no longer want to carry. And I've been thinking about death a lot. Again, I'm 57 years old. But, in 21 and 22, two of my brothers, age 60 and 61, had passed away. And, tomorrow's not promised, right? But they were so young. And me being so close to that age, I think, what if I were to die right now? What would my family think? I'm carrying this debt. And yeah, my assets far outweigh it. And so I had this conversation with my husband and he's like, well, you make that draw, you got to time it with the market. And like, the stock market was doing really poorly, and, wait till it goes back up. And then, do you really need to use that money? Can that money come from somewhere else? Can you create that plan? Will you pay it off in 20, by the money? And it's like, by the money that I currently have. And it's just like, but I have this money, I have these assets. But we get so afraid to touch the money that we saved, that puts us in a spin. And then we have this dialogue with ourselves, like, well, I can't touch that money, I've been saving for it. And if I invest, I take my investments to pay off my debt. But my debt was an investment. It was an investment in myself. I borrowed from my future self, right? But I had the money all along. So what makes us not want to pay off that debt, use that money, those assets? And I believe it's the plan that we create for ourselves. When we know that magic number, when we know the number that we need, when we know exactly what we want and the help that we need, when we can go sit with ourselves and just be and say, you know what, self, what is it that you want? I remember the first time someone had asked me this. They're like, Lisa, what do you want? And I started crying because no one had ever asked me what I wanted. People were just always taking and demanding. And, I just felt like I was on call constantly for my kids, my husband, my work. I had to perform. So I never took me time. And when someone asked me, like, what do you want? I wanted peace, and having financial peace, having financial freedom. It isn't about restrictive budgets or sacrificing everything you love. It's about taking control. It's about multiplying the money you already have. It's about creating a system that works for you. So the most important step that I did when I decided to pay off that debt was make that decision. I rewrote the story. Before I could tackle any debt, I had to rewrite my money story. I had to change my habits, and habits dictate our outcome. We get into these habits, this circular vicious cycle of doing the same thing over and hoping to get different results. We keep investing in, I call it the shiny object syndrome. We keep investing in programs in hopes that we can crack 10, 20, 30, 40K months, $1 million months, whatever it is your number is. But then we don't do it. We don't watch the courses. We don't listen to the coach. We don't show up for the calls because we have this dialogue going on, this habit that we've created for ourselves that keep us stuck. It's deeply rooted in our beliefs. And, money, there's so many money beliefs that we have, and money was always something to fear. Paying off debt meant living a life of constant sacrifice. We get into debt to create more debt, to pay off more debt. We increase our income to pay off the debt. And everything, if you look at it, is debt. Your expenses, your monthly expenses that you have to pay, whether it's for your business or your personal, that is considered debt. But society sees it as those are bills. What's the difference between a bill and a debt? Debt is foreseen as, this is money that you borrowed that needs to be paid back, whereas a bill is something that you need to survive. But if you really think about it, what do you need to survive? So our thoughts are the key to creating the habits that we desire for the actions that we want. And once we can get out of our head and into our hearts and align those thoughts with those actions and those feelings, then we can make aligned decisions that are congruent with our core values. And that's one of the reasons why I use aroma freedom technique to clear the negative emotions tied to money, to rewrite that money story, to change my habits. This allowed me to see debt not as a punishment, but as an opportunity to build my financial resilience. So you have to believe that paying off debt is possible before you can make it happen. You have to believe that debt is good, that you are leveraging debt that you borrowed from your future self and that you get to pay it back. Because if you're capable of racking up $100,000 worth of debt, 60,000, 50,000, whatever the debt amount is, you're capable of making that much money to pay it off. It's just a matter of breaking those old habits and making that decision. And the next thing I want to share with you is adopting the money multiplier mindset. So the money multiplier system isn't about cutting corners. It is about being strategic and intentional. It follows a simple formula. You save, you give, and you enjoy 10% of your money, 10% in each of those categories. You take 20% plus your minimum balances on your credit cards and you pay off that debt. You create a plan and then you live off the other 50%. And most people who come into my wealth accelerator look at that and they're like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not spending 10% fun money on myself. Okay, I'll save 10%. Do I have to give 10%? Can I give it to my kids? No. If you think about it, okay, you can use whatever percentages you want. I recommend the 10% because my grandma taught me way back in the 70s, always give back 10%, save 10%, and you'll always have it. And one of my clients back in the 90s had told me to read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, which is that 10% concept of saving. And if you want to be wealthy, you always pay yourself first. You always put money aside, for that future funds, for the, what you love to do. Like, how do you want to spend your money? And that's why I love in the Wealth Accelerator, we take your money goal and we reverse engineer it. And then we create those money buckets and we create the income streams so that you can hit those goals and have your P&L match your bank accounts. And that's what brings you true wealth. That breakdown, of your idea number, of the number that works for you, because the numbers are going to be different. Not all millionaires became millionaires overnight, right? They didn't start off saying, I'm going to make $1 million today. They worked their way up to it. And they started with, oh, you know what? I have this idea. I'm going to invest some money and then I'm going to create more money. And then I'm going to put this plan in place so that my money multiplies. And this is how I'm going to become a millionaire. And when you think about it, it's about making conscious choices. It's about creating a habit. When you keep track of your money, when you create your spending plan, every dollar, every penny is accounted for. And then you end up adjusting when you decide that you want to pay off this debt. When I made a decision to pay off the $100,000 worth of debt, it happened, okay? So I started rewriting my money story 6 months before I paid off that debt. I didn't even realize how much debt I had. I went through a painting exercise with a coach, Heidi Carter, who did visualization, hypnosis, and art to help me break the patterns, to use the opposite side of my brain that I had never touched before, to break through these money stories that I was telling myself. And it was amazing. And I introduced the aromatherapy to help me accelerate the process. So using the combination of these tools, I created the Wealth Accelerator, and I use these tools to help my clients work through, to rewrite that money story and to take the action, to change the habits, to break that cycle so that they can meet the goals that they desire. And it's customized because you get to decide what your number is. You get to decide how you're going to spend that money. You get to decide how much money you want to make. And it doesn't have to depend on, the other coaches in whatever industry, whatever niche you're in. It depends on what you want, what your number is, because true wealth is different for every single one of us. And when you implement this system consistently, sticking to the plan, it's simple, but it's not easy because old habits come to play. Old habits die hard. And I was tempted so many times to slip back into impulsive spending. And then I looked at my debt a few weeks ago and saw the $60,000. I was like, am I creating this emotional spending issue again? Am I using this as a crutch? And I wasn't. I was using I didn't trust myself to implement the new tools that I acquired by working with the different coaches. Instead, I would try it for a week or so and I wouldn't see results, which was a lie that I was telling myself. And then I would hire a different coach. I'd get into a different program. I would join a different challenge and I would justify it. Well, it's only X amount of dollars. I did the same exact thing with my health journey. I worked with a coach, and if I wasn't getting results, I'd be like, well, their method's not working. Let me try a different coach. And I kept just investing in hopes. And it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that something sticks, right? Not really checking in with myself and asking my intuition, asking my gut, like, is this the path that's right for me? I started practicing it this year. So, as of the recording of this, it's May 17th of 2025. And one of the choices that I made was to give up alcohol. So on September 8th of 2024, it was my first day of being alcohol free. And that journey alone has completely changed my perspective of things, of investments, of managing money, of how I want to run my business, but most importantly, what true wealth means to me. And it made me realize that these burdens are like chains that we hold on to that drag us down. And the psychologist that I'm working with using BWRT, excuse me, is helping me break these patterns, is helping me look and see, okay, how is my money story from my family of entrepreneurs affecting me today? How is having debt and paying it back, by this deadline? It's like a game. Oh, okay, I got till January 26th, beat the 0% interest because I hate paying interest. How is this preventing me from moving forward? Because subconsciously, I'm carrying all this guilt and I'm thinking I'm going to die soon. This is why I'm having health problems. Like, I'm telling myself this story, and this story is preventing me from moving forward and truly doing what I want to do. And it's like, well, what do I truly want to do? I truly want to sponsor 60 women who are facing unplanned pregnancies and get them, the support that they need through this Compass Care agency that I support. And I truly want to help 1 million women become millionaires without sacrificing their sovereignty. And I truly want to squash financial illiteracy. And, I have a book in the works, and I want to be able to invest in a beautiful illustrator and fund this book so I can get it out into the schools and into the libraries and into the world so that our next generation can find their true wealth and be responsible with money. So setting up a system, a plan. I love money buckets, setting up automated transfers for debt payments and savings. The minute my income comes in, it hits the account. We sit down every Friday and I look at that money coming in, the multiple income streams. I celebrate that. There's 6 steps that we do in the Wealth Accelerator, non-negotiables every day. And we implement that. And we think about the money buckets. We think about that dollar amount. What's that dollar amount that you desire? And then we reverse engineer it. This way, you never have to think twice. I used a savings bucket to build a $5,000 emergency fund in 3 months, which gave me peace of mind. When my car broke down, I had the money. When the hot water tank goes, I have the money. I don't have to worry about it. And some people don't like the emergency fund. They used to call it sinking funds. Some people still use that term. We call it future funds in the Wealth Accelerator. It's, sometimes the words that we use deter us from hitting our goals because we have this negative connotation about that word. I hate the word budget. It's restrictive, right? But when I call it a spending plan, I'm like, yeah, I have a spending plan in place. I have a money map that tells me exactly where my money is going and how I'm going to multiply it and how I'm going to spend it and enjoy it in both my business and my personal life. And it's working. And I'm multiplying money. And, as I transferred my money from my investments to pay off my debt, my husband said, well, how much money do you have now? And I, shared that figure with him. And he's like, well, you're still a multimillionaire. Of course I am, because I'm still implementing the plan, and just investing in myself is so important. Over investing, we gamble, we throw the dice, you can take chances. There could be a high risk, but know what you're getting yourself into. Know the risk. Do the research, and one of the things I love to do is visualize what I want. Like, I wanted to go to Europe. I wrote it years ago that I wanted to travel. And, the last 2 years we've been in Europe. We'll be in Europe in a few weeks. And I get to go to my native land, Italy, right? I'm Italian descent. And I can't wait. I can't wait to be in that culture and experience that. And to me, that's true wealth. So visualizing like what it is you want, like, do you truly want to be debt free, or do you want to be in this cycle? Do you want to break the habits that are keeping you stuck, feeling like you're not making enough money and that you have to hustle and grind and go out and bring in more income streams? Or do you want to create a plan, a lifestyle that empowers you, where you claim your sovereignty and you can feel secure? You can create a beautiful legacy and teach this to your children. Think about it. When I first paid off that $100,000 worth of debt with my own money and realized for the first time that I was a multimillionaire, tears streamed down my face. I was sobbing, happy tears. I was doing a dance. I was like, wow, I did this. I don't come from a family of millionaires. We worked hard. We saved our money. And, some of my family had money, some of them didn't, because they would, blow through it, right? Money burns a hole in your pocket. You may have heard that one before. And I did not want to be like that person where money burned a hole in my pocket. I wanted to be that person where money, money goes where money is. That's the person I wanted to be. And I remember declaring that at age 7. And I thought, well, how do I do that? But the cycles, the things that we learn from our family, they come back, they sneak up on us in our subconscious. So it's really important to set those goals, set small achievable goals, and reward yourself when you hit those goals. It's really important to have that money map, to create that spending plan, to know that number. And it's really important to identify your debt, to know the exact amount that you owe, and to create a plan to pay it back. And if you want support with this, please click on the show notes, schedule your wealth activation call. We'll take a look and I'll see if the Wealth Accelerator is a good fit for you. And you can be in a position where you are controlling your money, not money controlling you. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.